The conference room on the 45th floor erupted into chaos as 7-year-old Emily Kensington hurled a stack of folders across the polished mahogany table, her small face twisted in fury. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of small moments to change lives, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness True Stories. Also, tell us in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? You don't understand anything, she screamed at the 5th therapist that month, the woman backing toward the door and clutching her briefcase like a shield. Clara Kensington stood motionless by the window, her tailored suit perfect, her expression carved from ice, with only her eyes betraying her tired, desperate, failing heart. When the therapist fled, Clara whispered to the empty air, "Can no one handle this child?" Meanwhile, 43 floors below in the janitor's break room, Ethan Cole cradled his 6-year-old daughter Leela against his chest, humming a lullaby his late wife used to sing, his voice drifting through the ventilation system soft and warm as candlelight. Upstairs, Emily's head lifted, her tears stopping, and for the first time in months, something reached through the wall she'd built around her heart. Ethan Cole's mornings began in a cramped apartment in Queens, where the radiator clanged and neighbors argued through paper-thin walls. He'd wake before dawn, brew cheap coffee in a pot older than his daughter, and stand at the kitchen window watching the city wake up, his hands scarred from years of equipment, handling yet calloused from mop handles, moving with surprising gentleness as he braided Leela's honey-brown hair. She'd chatter about her drawings, her friends, her latest obsession with butterflies, and he'd listen like she was reciting poetry. They'd take the subway together, her small hand in his, until he dropped her at the public school, 3 blocks from his work. Ethan had been a sound engineer once, back when music meant something more than survival. He'd worked with artists whose names still topped charts, had mixed tracks that went platinum, had felt the pulse of creation in his fingertips. Until came the pregnancy complications, the emergency, the choice between a career and being present for his dying wife Sarah's final wish that their daughter would never feel abandoned. He'd held Sarah's hand as the machines beeped their final symphony, and when Leela was placed in his arms, still covered in vernix and possibility, he knew his old life was over. Now he pushed a mop cart through the marble halls of Kensington Holdings, invisible to the executives who rushed past in their $1,000 shoes. But he didn't mind, because invisibility had its advantages. He could observe without being observed, could listen to the rhythm of this strange world, where money moved like water and people treated each other like chess pieces. Clara Kensington's mornings began in a penthouse overlooking Central Park, where silence was purchased by the square foot and maintained by staff who knew better than to speak unless spoken to. She'd wake at 5, run 4 miles on a treadmill that cost more than most cars, then stand under a rainfall shower that never quite washed away the exhaustion. Her reflection showed a woman of 32 who could pass for 25 thanks to excellent bone structure, disciplined eating, strategic Botox, beautiful, and absolutely alone. By 7, she'd be in her office reviewing reports that judged the fates of thousands of employees she'd never meet, signing contracts that moved millions, firing executives who failed to meet targets, approving mergers that made headlines. Her assistant brought her meals she barely touched. Her phone buzzed with messages she answered in clipped sentences. She was brilliant, ruthless, successful, and utterly incapable of reaching the one person who mattered, her daughter Emily, a child born not from love, but from a strategic merger that ended in a bitter divorce. A child who now seemed to hate everything Clara represented. Days passed, and Emily's outbursts grew more frequent, a tornado of pain destroying every room she entered. While Clara responded with tighter schedules and more expensive experts, building a fortress of solutions that only deepened their isolation. Yet each afternoon, as Ethan finished his shift, he'd retreat to a small storage closet where he kept a battered guitar, and he'd play softly, the melodies weaving through the building's airways, a secret concert for no one. And each time Emily, alone in her playroom, filled with toys that failed to delight her, would grow still, pressing her ear to the vents, chasing the ghost of a tune that felt like a memory she never had. One Thursday, a catastrophic meeting collapsed when Emily, in a fit, locked herself in the executive washroom. Clara, with a board meeting in minutes, did the unthinkable and called maintenance. Ethan arrived with his toolkit, his uniform crisp but faded, his eyes taking in the scene. The powerful woman trembling with helpless rage, the silent staff avoiding her gaze. He didn't speak, just knelt at the door and, instead of forcing it, began to hum that same lullaby, his fingers tapping a gentle rhythm on the wood. The sobbing inside ceased, a lock clicked, and the door opened to reveal Emily, small and shattered, looking not at her mother but at Ethan, the janitor whose song had found her. "You sing like my nanny used to," she whispered, a woman long dismissed by Clara for being too sentimental. Clara stared, first in shock, then in dawning comprehension. Ethan simply nodded. "My wife used to say music is a bridge when words are broken." In that moment, Clara's ice began to crack. She dismissed her assistant, ignored her buzzing phone, and did something she hadn't done in years. She sat on the floor right there in the hallway. She didn't reach for Emily, just sat, allowing the awkward silence to hang until Emily, intrigued by this man and his calm, asked, "Can you teach me that song?" Ethan's eyes met Clara's, a silent request for permission in a world where he was meant to be invisible. Clara, against every instinct, nodded. So Ethan sat too, his back against the wall, and he taught Emily the lullaby, note by note, while Clara listened, truly listened, to the sound of her daughter's voice, without anger, for the first time in memory. That evening, Clara didn't work late. She went home with Emily, and in the vast, quiet penthouse, she tried to hum the tune herself. It was shaky and off-key, but Emily, instead of screaming, corrected her gently. "No, Mama, like this." It was a beginning. The next day, Clara found Ethan cleaning the lobby and, with the entire atrium as witness, asked if he would consider an unusual position, not as a janitor, but as a part-time companion for Emily, someone to bring music and perhaps some peace into their home. Ethan, thinking of Leela, of the extra hours he could now spend with her, of the chance to use his gift for healing rather than just surviving, agreed, but on one condition, that it would be about connection, not control. Clara, learning her first lesson in humility, agreed. Weeks turned into months. Ethan and Leela, who became fast friends with Emily, became fixtures in the Kensington penthouse, not as staff but as unexpected family. Ethan repaired not just the broken silence, but the broken rhythms of two lonely hearts. He showed Clara how to listen, not to quarterly reports, but to her daughter's dreams and fears. He showed Emily that the world wasn't just a cold place of demands, but could hold warmth in a simple melody. Clara, in turn, used her resources to ensure Ethan's sound engineering talents weren't wasted, funding a small studio where he could work evenings, where Leela could watch her father create beauty again. The story of the executive and the janitor, of the lonely heiress and the grieving father, became a quiet testament to the invisible threads that connect us all, a reminder that sometimes rescue comes not from a boardroom, but from a broom closet. That kindness is the most powerful frequency of all, a signal that can pierce through any flaw, any barrier, any fortified heart. And so a family was built not by blood or business, but by a lullaby carried on the air, a melody that taught them all that every life, no matter how invisible, holds a note essential to the world's symphony. If you believe in the power of kindness and the true stories that remind us of our shared humanity, please support our channel by liking, sharing, and subscribing to Kindness True Stories. Your engagement helps us share more light in a world that desperately needs it. Thank you for watching, and remember, your kindness matters.